The West Philippine Sea Newsletter, Volume 13. What options are available to answer aggressive Chinese actions? Another incident occurred in the West Philippine Sea where the regional escalations have shifted from the second Thomas Shoal to the Sabina Shoal, also known as the Escoda Shoal in the Philippines. This is due to China's persistent efforts to enforce its disputed territorial claims, which are as close as 86 miles, 138 kilometers, from the Philippine Islands. The Philippines continue to push back on China to assert its internationally recognized rights to their exclusive economic zone of the West Philippine Sea, which includes the Sabina Shoal. This has become a new flashpoint in the South China Sea as the United States, the European Union, and other Philippine allies have criticized China for its actions. The U.S. and the Philippines militaries met last week to discuss options to counter China's ever-increasing aggressive actions in the region. The latest incident occurred between the Philippine Coast Guard ship BRP Teresa Magbanua and the Chinese Coast Guard ship CCG-5205, which were involved in a ramming incident on August 31st around noon local time. While both parties placed blame on each other, the Philippines was able to provide media accounts and a video of the incident, which shows the Philippine ship striking the Chinese ship after the Chinese ship made a reckless maneuver in front of the Philippine ship. The video goes on to show that the Chinese ship striking the stern of the Philippine ship at least twice. There was no reported injuries or damage to the Chinese ship, but the Teresa Magbanua sustained damage, including a hole in its hull. The BRP Teresa Magbanua has been on what the Philippines call an extended patrol in the Sabina Shoal since April. After discovering that the Chinese were conducting reclamation efforts in the shoal by grounding up coral from the seabed and use it to create an artificial island, similar to what they've done in other parts of the South China Sea, the Philippine Coast Guard deployed its largest and most modern ship to the shoal. Following the discovery, the Philippine government took two actions. The Philippine Justice Department was the first to collect evidence for an international court case against China for environmental damage. The other was to deploy the Teresa Magbanua to the shoal to ward off any more attempts to build the artificial island by China. China denied the Philippines' environmental damage claim and accused it being the party that damaged the sea floor, but did not provide any evidence. The other accusation comes from the Beijing government, which accuses the Philippines of, quote, virtually grounding, end quote, the Teresa Magbanua to establish a permanent manned presence in the Sabina Shoal, a clear reference to the Philippines' 1999 grounding of the BRP Sierra Madre in the second Thomas Shoal and its ongoing manned presence in the area. The Chinese have labeled both actions as illegal, persisting in asserting their sovereignty claims over the entire South China Sea, which arbitration and international maritime law have deemed illegitimate. With their dubious logic, the Chinese argue that the Philippines' actions in the second Thomas Shoal and the Sabina Shoal, with their, quote, virtual grounding, end quote, violate Chinese sovereignty. The Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Samuel Paparo, Jr., met with Philippine officials, including Philippine Chief of Staff General Romeo Bronner, Jr., in the Philippines last week. In a press conference, Admiral Paparo stated that the United States was open to exploring options to escort Philippine ships in performing resupply missions in the West Philippine Sea. The U.S. and the Philippines have a defense alliance, the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty of 1951, which dictates that the U.S. will defend, and vice versa, the Philippines in case of an attack. As a result, the United States has legal standing to consider such measures to assist the Philippines. Philippine General Bronner, though not rejecting the U.S. options for assistance, did warn the gathered press at the open press conference that Philippine law and constitution do have some stipulations that forbid foreign involvement in local entanglements that would also be considered before any such action could go forward. While the U.S. and Philippines have not officially offered or rejected the offer of U.S. escorts, are there any other options available to exert pressure on China? The ASEAN organization is attempting to bring stability to the region and has set up a task force to try to create a consensus in the region, including non-ASEAN countries like the United States and China, in an attempt to introduce rules to avoid escalation. However, the attempt to find common ground without addressing the underlying sovereignty claims implies that such an agreement is at least years away. The problem lies in the division of ASEAN among neutral, pro-China, and pro-West leaning members, preventing them from speaking with a unified voice. The other issue is that China maintains an official stance advocating for bilateral negotiations on all disputes, thereby gaining significant leverage over nearly all countries in the region. Outside of the direct escorts, which have the potential to put the U.S. Navy and the People's Liberation Army Navy plan on a collision course, the other option is to increase access denial access capability in the region, or A2AD. This would involve the United States and Philippines collaborating to deploy additional anti-air and anti-surface assets in the West Philippine Sea. This would act as a deterrent against China, limiting its ability to operate successfully in the region in the event of an armed conflict. The U.S. deployment of the Typhoon missile system to the Philippines is a testament to this capability, as the Philippine purchase of Indian-made BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles as well. The U.S. has also given a $500 million grant to the Philippines in July, with the promise of more funds in the near future to build up joint bases in the Philippines and to improve the Philippines' sensitive information security structure to allow intelligence sharing with the U.S. and open up eligibility of the Philippines to purchase more advanced U.S. weapons. The United States is implementing a controversial policy by deploying small U.S. Marine Corps detachments in the region known as littoral regiments. Part of their mission would be A2AD within the first island chain, with these littoral regiments possessing air defense, surface, and surface-to-surface missile capabilities. The U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force would also have a role in being more aggressive by shadowing and blocking aggressive maneuvers by Chinese forces in the region, including the People's Liberation Army Navy, the People's Liberation Army Air Force, the Chinese Coast Guard, and the Chinese Maritime Militias. The mission would select the U.S. and the Philippines to be better use of resources and show that the U.S. and its allies could intervene. Such an aggressive action is likely to encounter pushback from the Chinese, potentially leading to additional incidents, as demonstrated in the Sabina Shoal, where People's Liberation Army Navy warships have also operated. The U.S. and the Philippines must also make it clear that negotiated settlement to bring the tensions in the region is the ultimate goal, but to make it a realistic possibility, the U.S. and Philippines must have a credible deterrent against China being able to successfully operate in the West Philippine Sea. Would such a policy increase a risk of war with China? It is possible. However, the alternate is to do nothing and cede the South China Sea to China. The other issue that works in the U.S. and Philippine favor is that if Taiwan remains outside of Chinese control, China cannot effectively project force into the West Philippine Sea, as it would lack significant air cover and lack an effective aircraft carrier fleet to project power around the Philippines. An effective and credible military deterrence in the West Philippine Sea would reduce the Chinese threats to nothing more than a bluff or symbolic resistance as long as China stays outside of Chinese control. While it's not a perfect situation for the West Philippine Sea, it's the current state of affairs in the short and medium term.